Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Steiner, you mentioned in your testimony some of the health effects of chemicals for which IRIS has provided scientific documentation, for example, or scientific determinations, excuse me, brain damage, cardiovascular illness, reproductive dysfunction, cancer. That is a list that should cause us to pay attention, and I want to bring up something that you mentioned in your written testimony, the January 2014 chemical spill in West Virginia. As you indicated in your testimony, at the time of the spill, the chemical being used, called crude MCHM, was not in the IRIS database. So briefly, and then I'll ask you to expand in writing, under the current IRIS and EPA process, what would have to happen before a chemical like MCHM would be subject to an IRIS assessment?
Well, the problem with that chemical is it's not listed in any of the statutes, the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, as being a contaminant of concern, and yet we saw that it caused very grave problems in West Virginia. For it to make its way onto the IRIS list and actually have an assessment completed, our calculations are it would take decades at the rate they're going, and that's very unfortunate. As you know, the people there have been told that they need to make a personal decision about whether to shower or bathe their babies in the water.
Right. So. And I'm going to try to get a couple more questions in. Recently, this committee took up a bill alleging secret science at the EPA. We hear a lot about the need for transparency. Now, it's my understanding that the companies do not have to demonstrate the safety of their products, and in fact, safety data is often treated as proprietary. So we all know that we need chemicals for modern society, but how can we be confident that the chemicals in the marketplace are not harming us?
I don't think we can be confident, as the West Virginia example shows, and I would urge you to take a very careful look at that bill. That bill would make it even more difficult for EPA to assess chemicals by raising the burden of what kind of evidence they have to have in lieu of a testing requirement very high.
Ms. Bonamici, may I make a comment quickly on that?
Well, I have to reclaim. I only have 41 seconds. For the record, please do submit. Dr. Dornan, thank you for the Academy for all your work that you've done. Can you tell me when the Academy's work will be completed, and at what point will you be finished with changing the process or contributing to the process?
So with respect to the report that was issued in May, I mean, that's a project that's been completed. One of the things to keep in mind is that the Academy's activities, having been a member of several committees now, have largely been directed by either Congress, mandated by Congress, or else requested by EPA. And so really a lot of the work that the Academies is doing with respect to the IRIS program is being driven by those factors.
And do you still have productive contributions to make?
So right now, to my knowledge, the Academy is the only IRIS process one that we're looking at right now, or the Academies is looking at, is related to arsenic.
Thank you. I'm out of time, and Dr. Olden, I'll be submitting more questions for the record.